Hope everybody's doing well out there. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new to the channel, please hit the subscribe button so you can catch future videos like this along the way. Also, if you have any questions, comments, or just want to share information about your amplifier or whatever you use with this potential speaker or another speaker, I'd love to hear about it. Post it down there in the comments. Also, check out the description section as well, because I do put extra information in there and also things that I thought would have been important in the video, but may have, thought about it too late. So check it out. Oh, and there could be some links down there too as well. So just take a look. This huge speaker is the Polk Audio Reserve R700. This speaker, let me tell you, this speaker is a heavy speaker. When it shows up in the box, I believe it's close to 100 pounds. Like this, it's pretty close to 80 pounds. It's over 79 pounds. This is a heavy speaker. This is not a speaker that most of us mortals can pick up, especially if we have a bad back. So definitely make sure that you have some help with this if you do order this speaker. It's a big speaker. It's a great speaker. I have my chair sitting at the same height as my couch, just so you can get a idea of where the tweeter is, going to be. And of course, your couch is going to be, hopefully, a lot further away than where I'm sitting, but still you could see like how, high the tweeter is and how high the speaker is in general. I'm going to first go over the specifications over here from the owner's manual. They hand this big book with it. It's pretty large, pretty amazing, but only about 13 pages is in English, and then it goes into a whole bunch of other languages, which is great for people that, maybe speak more than one or something else. So very nice, Polk Audio. Good job. Good job. Okay, so the tweeter on this is a 1-inch Pinnacle ring radiator, and this tweeter is pointy. Now, when you open up the box, don't open it from the top. Okay, you have to open this from the bottom. The bottom is going to have this right here. These are attached. So it comes with the feet already attached. And just to kind of show you a little bit without killing myself, this comes off. And now it's a carpet spike right here. There's a carpet spike right here. Or, it's not super pointy, but it's definitely more of a carpet spike. It's pointy, so that's what you would use if you were going to maybe put it on carpeting, or you could use the rubber feet as well on the carpeting. It's just your choice. Also underneath here is the port. The port is up in here, and port sounds nice. I like it. I like a port that fires at the floor, or typically a port that fires in the rear. Those are my favorites. Like I'm going to read this without these. Okay. All right, let's see. So where were we? The mid-range, the bass. It's got a 6.5-inch turbine cone, and you can see these bumps? Pretty interesting, different looking. Let's see, the woofers. It just says two 8-inch woofers, and there's definitely some type of coating on this, whatever it is. I'm sure it says it on the website somewhere. I didn't really look that far into it. The overall frequency response is 30 hertz to 50 kilohertz. Okay, that's the overall. Then there's a frequency response, which is rated at -3 decibels, which is 38 hertz to 38 kilohertz. So just keep that in mind, 38 hertz in the bass to 38 kilohertz in the treble, but the overall, they're rating it up to 50. The crossovers are at 2.7 kilohertz for the treble to the mid-range. So right over here, the sound is going to be cut off. So at 2.7 kilohertz, anything underneath it is going here to the mid-range. Anything above it is going here. Then the woofers are getting 350 hertz. So anything under 350 hertz is going from your mid-range down into your woofers. Product dimensions. So this is 45 inches high, 16 inches deep by 12.6 inches wide. So yeah, it's a big speaker. That's a big speaker. It's a big speaker, but it's also, I mean, it's definitely well made. You know, you think about that type of weight, which I'm going to get to actually, that's probably coming up. Yeah, so the product weighs 79.1 pounds. In the box, 94.4 pounds. So, you know, think about that. 79.1 pounds. This thing is twice the weight of a lot of the other tower speakers. These speakers over here are, if I remember right, these things are like in the upper 40s or low 50s, like 51 pounds or something like that. So yeah, so this is a heavy speaker. I mean, it's a solid, well-made speaker. This is, again, this is not the sort of thing that if you have any issues with back problems, any other type of injuries, this is not the sort of thing that you would want to go lift and move around by yourself. Okay, so just to give you an idea of how I moved it and show you the back, this is what I basically did. I kept putting it on one of the feet and then just rotate. So I just keep rotating it like this. Now you can see the back, and it's got these binding posts, and here's the jumpers. So if you want to do a bi-amp with your receiver, make sure you take those jumpers off. You don't want to leave those on. That would be very bad, very bad. So make sure that those come off. Which way should I rotate it? I'm going to go this way. See, the rug is bunching. So yeah, that's how I'm able to move this speaker around. And I think that most people as well are going to be moving it around the same way. You could put the Atmos module on top of this, like that's how big it is. You could put a lot of stuff on top of this, to be honest. In the back, I have one of the bipolar speakers from Polk Audio. It's an old one. That sits up here and like takes up like half the space of this. I mean, you know, so you could really put a lot of things on top of this. But the Atmos module that they sell, which is, I think they call it the R900, and something about this speaker that's interesting is that it's IMAX certified and it's high-res certified. So that's what it says here in the book, in the manual, right here towards the bottom. IMAX certified, high-res certified. In the book, they also show you different ways to configure it for Atmos. It has some additional information. I read through it. It's pretty good, you know, especially if you're new to speakers. I mean, it's very nice. You know, they didn't just kind of like hand you like one sheet of paper that's, you know, not very informative. This is actually really informative. I like it. Again, nice job to Polk Audio for that. So I don't think I have to move this again. I don't know if I need this glove. Where is my notes? I'm going to start at the top with the tweeter. I'm actually not gonna work off the notes at first. The tweeter is very pointy. Okay, so the tweeter is very pointy, and you know, back to the whole thing about the box. Don't open this up and like grab it. So don't open it from the top. You have to open the bottom of the box and then kind of like lean it. And you know, lean it a little bit so that the speaker comes out, and you want to kind of lift the box, you know, straight up if possible, because these feet are already attached, like I was saying, and you know, you kind of want the speaker to just come out. So there's going to be a piece of foam underneath here, so it should kind of slide out, you know, that way. Of course, with two people, it would be a lot easier than trying to, you know, get it out yourself. So yeah, so this tweeter is pointy. You also don't want to come over here and grab it because you might puncture yourself. It's pointy, and yeah, I mean, you could very easily put your finger into that. So it'll be like going for a blood test at the doctor. I mean, the tweeter sounds nice. You know, the tweeter does sound really nice. I like this tweeter much better than most of the speakers that I've been testing recently, reviewing, and I do like it a lot better than most of the tweeters that I've heard over the past couple of years as well. It's very nice, it's very clear. I haven't found it to be harsh in any way, but what's nice about the speaker is that it seems to respond very well to the equalizer on the receiver. Hooked it up to the Onkyo RZ840, 120 watts a channel. I would really like to hook this up to a receiver with a lot of power. I just want to back up back to the manual because I got sidetracked. They recommend 20 to 300 watts for this speaker. I would not go anywhere near the speaker with 20 watts. I just feel like that's way too low for power, because you got two 8-inch here, and and you want to move them in order to make that bass. So I think that some good power here is definitely due. It does play loud. This is a very loud playing speaker. It's a very evenly balanced speaker. The sound really just flows out of it. I don't feel like I'm listening to it from the tweeter or this mid-range. It just sounds like there's just one big wall of sound, and possibly as well because the port comes out of the bottom, so there's some bass coming out of all sides. I don't know if I would want to use this with anything less than the 120 watts that I hooked it up to. Maybe you have some type of real high quality amp that's 80 watts. Maybe that would be good. I don't know. That would be up to you to decide, of course. But I would love to really see this with like 200 watts a channel, or 250, or who knows, maybe to 300, just to really hear what the speaker can do when it's really well powered. Sensitivity is, I don't know, my glasses, it's 88 decibels. 88 decibels, look at that cheating. And lastly, the amplifier output compatibility. Okay, so this is what they have. They have 8 ohms / 6 ohms / 4 ohms, and then the minimum impedance is 3.6 ohms, and that's right over here. I don't know if the camera's going to be able to show that, but that's how they put it in the manual. And I believe I read that this is considered 8 ohm speaker. The tweeter, I think, is a great tweeter. I didn't find it to be bright. I didn't find it to be sharp or piercing. But again, the speaker does, it does sound very evenly balanced, everything, which is, that's really important. Sometimes other speakers, they just don't sound as balanced. It sounds like everything's coming from the tweeter or the tweeter mid-range area. Another thing about this tweeter that I like is that it seems to respond very well with the equalizer. Some of these other tweeters, you can use your equalizer on your receiver or whatever, and it might make the tweeter not quite as loud, but the way the tweeter is producing the sound, it can't change that. So if the tweeter is really shimmering away, or it's sizzling away, sometimes you're kind of stuck with that. But in this case, using the equalizer and just moving it down like a decibel or two in the treble for various frequencies can make this tweeter really sound like a whole different tweeter. It'll just calm it down even more. I feel like the speaker is more like neutral. I'm going to say neutral, maybe a little bit warm, neutral warm. I don't think the speaker's a bright speaker. The mid-range is really good. The voices sound excellent. The voices sound clear. I didn't have any instances where I was listening to music and I'm going, the voices sounded muddy or muffled. Voices sound good. The snare drums sound good. Overall, everything sounds good. Acoustic guitars really sound good on this thing. The bass guitars sound really good as well. This speaker has really nice bass, so let's get into the bass. It has two 8-inch woofers over here, which is fantastic. And again, that's part of the problem with a lot of other speakers is that, in my opinion, they're pairing these tweeters, or they're making this one tweeter that is so big, and then they're pairing it to a 5 1/4, they're pairing it to a 6 1/2. Pair this tweeter to something that's, where, the rest of the speaker is going to match it. And what I keep calling it is big tweeters and little tiny baby woofers, because that's just the way a lot of speakers sound. But with this, it sounds very uniform, very consistent. There's some nice bass that comes out of the port on the bottom. And again, I would love to hear this with more power. Pretty much everything I threw at it sounded good. Another word about the bass is that this speaker sounds a lot better than a lot of the other 8-inch speakers that I reviewed and that I played. It's just pretty amazing, and that's really due to this port on the bottom. And these are also, I believe they call these a long throw woofer. So usually long throw woofers tend to produce bass that's better bass. Bass guitars sounded really good, a combination of this tweeter, this mid-range, and these woofers. The bass guitars were coming through great. That bing, 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 bing type of sound that they can make sounds good. I can't really find fault with this speaker. Back to the EQ part, running an equalizer on the bass portion. So I went over to my equalizer on the receiver, and it gives you 25 hertz. I think it's 25 hertz, 40 or 45 hertz, and then 63 hertz or so. If I turn them up like 6 decibels, it sounds like I have a sub. At that point, it sounds like a sub. So I was kind of blown away by that, because usually I don't really use the equalizer. Most of the time when I use the equalizer, speakers end up sounding muddy, they lose their clarity. This held on to it, but it gave that type of like subwoofer type of sound. So I was really surprised. And initially, when I hooked this up with the equalizer setting that I was playing around with for these to try to give them some life in the bass and to try to cool off the tweeter a little bit, especially on the Bowers, that tweeter. I was trying to just cool it off a little bit, calm it down. And so when I first hooked this up, I had that type of EQ pattern, which you could find on the video about the Focal. And I was like wow, like I really thought, it sounded like a sub was on. I was totally blown away by it. So, with that said, this is a speaker that you could use your equalizer on and actually make changes to it. So, I'm totally happy with that. It's nice to see. I'm going to say give it at least 5 hours for the mid-range to start to open up more. The mid-range, the treble, because it sounded very, very, very warm when I first took it out of the box. It sounded a little bit compressed. I did like the sound though. I was actually pretty impressed with it. I was like, wow, this sounds good. It's a nice warm sounding speaker. It had a very like classic sound to it. But after 5 hours, 10 hours, 15 hours or so, the clarity really started coming through then. It just became more clear. Try, especially within that first 5 hours of playing music through it, really just try to give it some time to change a little bit. Kick drums sound really good with this. Any type of a recording where, the band recorded those kick drums, made those kick drums strong, this speaker really, really sounds great. I mean, it's a little tank, but it sounds good. So the bass on this, and with a little bit of help from the EQ as well, let's say, with that, running a test CD, the bass is, well, let's say without the EQ first, without the EQ, the bass is very strong into the 60 hertz range, and it's actually really good into the 50 hertz range. If I use the EQ on it, then the 50 hertz range is as strong as the 80 hertz range. So it's like that 50 hertz, like 80 hertz, 60 hertz, 50 hertz. They were all just pretty much the same volume, just really strong bass coming through. I'm going to say with using the EQ, 40 hertz would probably be the lowest that I would say, it's really spitting out good bass. And let me, back up. The volume is kind of at a volume where, like I'm speaking right now. So I'm not cranking it. And of course, if I was cranking it, that would be totally different. And when I say cranking it, meaning like I have to yell over the music or I have to speak really, really loud over the music in order to talk. When I ran the test For the bass, it was basically just at like the volume I would normally listen to, which is kind of at like speaking volume. So right now when I'm speaking, the volume that I'm hearing that's coming from my mouth, that's probably about where the speaker's at. Maybe even a little bit less than that. So, you know, not very loud. Not very loud at all. You know, kind of on the lower end. Which, speaking of volume, it sounds good at a low volume and it sounds good at a high volume. But of course, you know, as it gets louder, more of the clarity comes through, more of that bass oomph comes through. I mean, look, you know, as it's getting louder, it's getting more wattage. So again, I would really love to, you know, hear this speaker with a pretty high-powered amp. The listening angle, just make a triangle on this thing. So make a triangle that has 3 equal sides, so it's all the same size like this, right? So this is kind of probably exactly how the sound is coming out of this thing. So just picture an equal sides triangle. Maybe towing this in a little bit to the listening area might benefit depending on how far apart the speakers are spaced. I don't like how speakers look towed in, so I won't tow it in personally, but I think that, you know, towing it in might help, because especially if you're listening to this and you're listening to it where you're facing it, I mean, that's when it sounds the best, when you're facing it. So just, you know, try to keep that in mind. If you're off to an angle like I am right now, it's not going to sound as good. Okay, so there's a Breakin' Benjamin song on the latest album, Aurora. And Aurora has a song called Far Away with Scooter Ward from Cold. This speaker was very good at separating the vocals between Scooter and Benjamin. Scooter's voice is a little bit deeper, a little bit more like raspy sounding, and I mean, the song just sounds fantastic. Nice separation in the vocals. It's also acoustic song. The whole CD is acoustic. I mean, it sounded amazing. You know, I mean, I thought so. You know, some classic music, Aerosmith. Janie's Got a Gun. Janie's Got a Gun. So nice and clear, so nice, and the mid-range coming through was just really good. Just, it had a nice wide sound stage, a nice big sound stage. Slipknot, Five Finger Death Punch, Pantera. A lot of their recordings, I guess the cymbals, the cymbals, the hi-hats, a lot of that type of shimmer sound, that type of sizzle sound. This speaker does a good job at not overemphasizing it, or what I feel like some other speakers do sometimes is just really overextend it. Like it's like the tweeter's not cutting it off, okay? So it's like, you know, the cymbal is hit, and then, you know, the tweeter's just continuing to just drag it out much longer than it should be. So I feel like this speaker knows when to pull back. Korn, the song Got the Life. Got the Life has not only really good bass guitar sounds, but there's also like a boom, like a type of sound, which is really deep bass. With this speaker, was able to hear it. The EQ turned on, you know, then that deep bass sounds like it's like a sub doing it. Movies with this speaker. Movies sound great. This is a large speaker, so the tweeter and a lot of the other sounds are going to be pretty much at ear level by the time it hits you from wherever you're sitting. So I think I sit typically 10 feet, 12 feet away, or maybe 13 feet or so. It projects the sound. It has good bass. It's nice and clear, and it's just nice and full. For this speaker, as well as the R500, the R600, and the R700, Polk Audio recommends to set this speaker to small if you have a subwoofer, and set the crossover frequency between 40 Hertz to 80 Hertz. If no subwoofer is present, then they say set the speaker to large. If you're going to set the crossover, I would definitely say probably put it at 40 Hertz, maybe 50 Hertz. No higher than that. But with this speaker, I wouldn't want to set it to, I really wouldn't want to set the receiver to small. I would rather wire in line a subwoofer. So I would set the receiver to large and then put a subwoofer in line using the speaker wire. So what you would do is go from your receiver to the sub with the speaker wire, and then use the crossover on the sub, and then go from the sub's output to the speaker. Now, a lot of subs don't have that. It used to be much more common. I'm noticing that it's starting to fade away a bit. But if you have that, I think that that would be the best way to wire this up, because that way your other speakers in the rear aren't subject to being set to small. Because when you set your front speakers to small, with most receivers that I've used and seen, every other speaker automatically becomes small. You don't have an option for large. I like having the option for large because I like having a subwoofer on my surround backs behind the couch. That just adds a ton of bass impact, a lot of punch, and just boom. If this speaker was only set to large, you know, I don't think that you'd be losing that much, because it really does handle bass very well. Of course, you know, it's up to you and your home, your preference. Your hearing is different than mine. Your room acoustics are different. Your equipment's going to be different. You know, so just keep that in mind. That said, I think that this is a great speaker. It's a great speaker for the money. You know, the sound quality I think is great. I think that Polk Audio did a really fantastic job on this speaker. It's just so well balanced. You know, the Legend series is a series that's a series up from this, but this speaker uses a lot of the technology from that. So for $1,000, this speaker is pretty much a no-brainer, I feel like, in the category that it's in. I really can't find fault with it. And you know I said it a few times in this video, this speaker with a more powerful amp, I would really love to listen to it. So I may have to get a more powerful amp if anybody has any suggestions about something. I would think that the amp would have to be at least 140 watts or more to qualify for being more powerful over the 120, but I guess if it's an amp and it's 140, the quality of the power should be better than the receivers. Thanks for watching this video. I hope that you got something out of it.